Hey creators, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about something that I see a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the wellness and spiritual space, struggle with. The feeling of being stuck in a cycle of either doing too much or doing too little and not seeing the growth you want. Whether you're constantly creating but not seeing the results you're hoping for, or you're feeling paralyzed because you don't have a clear strategy, this video will help you move forward and take that next step. I also wanted to take the time to talk a little bit more about how I personally help people break out of this cycle and how you too can create a balance between mindset work and real actionable strategies to help move you forward. So let's begin. First, I really don't want you to get stuck in the trap of constantly creating content because sometimes more is just not the right answer. I wanted to start with this because I see this happen a lot, especially with my clients, but also outside of my circle. This idea that if you're not growing, it's because you need to create more. More content, more offers, more visibility. You too have probably felt this before. You've already poured so much energy into your business. Maybe you've created programs, written blogs, launched videos, webinars. Maybe you even design products, but it still feels like no matter what you do, you're not reaching that next level. And when this happens, your instinct might be to think, I just need to create more. But here's the point that I'm making. Sometimes creating more just isn't the solution. In fact, it can be quite exhausting and counterproductive. When you're focused on constantly churning out content, you're not giving yourself enough space to optimize and leverage the content that you've already created. I already talked about this in my video about the lazy girl's guide to creating content, and also in my video about how you're not stuck, you're just confused. But this is a really good point to make because content creation really does take a lot of your energy. And over time, that's going to lead to burnout, especially if you're working alone in your business and you're the one that has to constantly create the content, revise the content, and push it out time and time again. And I know everybody is telling you that you constantly need to be creating, which I myself have said that in the past. You do need to post consistently, but that doesn't mean that you need to always be creating something new. And when we're creating something new, that's really where burnout can come into play. Because again, how much energy are you expending on just being creative? Trust me, I know this firsthand. I do work in a creative agency. You need to take a break from this constant content creation. What is better to do instead is to find a few key areas that you need to talk about and just constantly talk about the same subjects from different perspectives. So in this way, you are still putting content out there. You are still posting consistently. You're consistently showing up for your audience. You're answering questions, but you're not constantly creating something new from scratch. You're not constantly reinventing the wheel. And really, when you do that, it's so much better than producing new original content all the time, just because first of all you'll have time to explore the different angles and you'll allow your audience to understand your offer a lot better, especially when you tackle it from different sides so you can appeal to more people. But also it takes a lot less time, a lot less resources to just go over the same topic over and over again than it would be to create something new every single time you get on camera. And this is something I tell my clients all the time, especially the ones that really don't want to show up. They find it very difficult to show up on camera, to post consistently. I always tell them, you don't need to create more, you just need to document. You need to document your life. A few years ago, when I first started my agency, I was listening a lot to huge names in the content creation industry, one of them being Gary Vee. And at the time, Gary was pushing people to create content all the time, right? He was pushing this idea of consistency. And one of his big things was that you don't need to create, you just need to document. It's this whole idea of document, don't create. And this is exactly what I tell my clients, especially the ones that are afraid to show up on camera. I always tell them, you don't need to sit down in front of a camera and create a YouTube video like I am here. All you need to do is just document your day, especially in personal branding. This has a huge impact because people want to see the behind the scenes. They want to see the person that you are. And documenting your daily life is, in some ways, even better than creating perfectly curated pieces of content. People are going to see your authenticity, they're going to get to know the real you, and they're going to be much more invested in who you are as a person because they're going to feel like they truly know you. So, if you're the type of person that finds it very difficult to create content, remember that you don't need to create. You can just document your life. And honestly, I can understand, I can really empathize with the fact that it's very hard to put yourself out there and to show up authentically, especially on stories, especially when we want to portray a certain image. It can be very difficult to be extremely raw about our life, right? I feel like especially in the last couple of years we have seen this idea that our lives on the internet need to be perfect and we need to portray this image in order to communicate that we are living our dream life, and we have to constantly show people that we are indeed living this perfect dream life. And you may feel like this is your reality, especially if you're offering some sort of transformational coaching or life design, because that's what people want to see, right? They want to see that you're living your best life so that they can trust you. But in reality, when you fall trapped to this idea that everything that you need to put out there needs to be perfect, well, it kind of stunts your growth because it just really doesn't allow you to be authentic. So, what's going to happen on the days that you're not feeling amazing and you don't want to show up and you don't want to portray this perfect image? Or what happens when your life is not 100% perfect and you need to take a step back and you need to rework yourself and need to rework your programs? Well, in those scenarios, most of the time, what's going to happen, you're going to stop posting altogether, and your audience is really going to wonder, what did you do? Where did you go? And I do feel like it's a pressure that we unnecessarily put on ourselves. I honestly feel like I have this issue with wanting to be perfect, wanting to curate a specific image, but I always justify it to myself because we are a very aesthetically driven studio. So I always justify it to myself that everything does indeed need to be perfect. But at the same time, I feel like if I would just allow myself a little bit more flexibility, I could be. It's really interesting because I always want to be extremely authentic, but also I want to curate everything. How do you do both? You know? And in this sense, this is what I want to do with my YouTube videos. Obviously, I want to sound good. I want to be able to articulate my message in a way that resonates with you and in a way that pushes you to take action and to continue on your path, because I truly believe in every single one of you out there that is trying to make a difference in the world, that is trying to create content and grow her audience and reach as many people as possible. But at the same time, I wish I could let go a little bit of this need of control. And I am doing so ever so slightly with every single video that I put out. Let's say that past me would have never told you this story, but I do want to be more vulnerable and more authentic so that hopefully I can reach other people that feel the same way and tell them that, you know what, it's okay. Even if you don't want to do it, even if you don't feel like it that day, you can still get yourself to do the hard things, right? I always tell myself I can do hard things. And sometimes the hard thing is just sitting in front of the camera and doing a YouTube video. But since I have it in my calendar that on Tuesdays I film videos, this is exactly what I'm doing today. So I went a little bit off on a tangent here, but this is all to say that when you're constantly creating content, and I know that you want your content to be extremely perfect, extremely polished, well, it does take a lot of energy to create that content. And if we just allowed ourselves to be just a little bit more authentic and a little bit more raw with what we put out there, then we'll find that we don't necessarily need to constantly be creating this polished content. And what we need to do is just document our life, speak about the same topic from different angles. And that's really what's going to push our business forward more than spending countless hours creating. And this is a big part of how I help my clients when we do our growth strategy sessions. I help them shift from this idea of constant creation to a more thoughtful implementation. And I'll have to tell you, a lot of the time, this work starts with mindset shifts. So, just like I told you before, the mindset shift that we don't always have to be perfect, we don't always have to have everything together in order to show up for our clients. Well, this is exactly one of the mindset shifts that you need to have. I was recently talking to a client in one of these growth strategy sessions, and she had taken a bit of a break from social media because she was experiencing a little bit of a burnout and she just didn't feel like showing up. So, again, this whole idea of not wanting to show up when everything is not perfect, this was what was holding her back for a couple of months. And now that she was ready to come back online and she was ready to show up again for her audience, well, now she was afraid that it was cringy to show up, that who is she to just disappear for a couple of months and then just come back and pick it up as if nothing happened. And, exploring this idea deeper, she admitted to me that it wasn't just that she found it to be cringy to show up online again, but she also felt like maybe she just hadn't done enough. Like, who was she to speak on these topics? And it's really interesting because this particular client, she's a psychotherapist with many years in practice. She has her own practice with other therapists that she supervises. She has helped hundreds of people. And actually, even before the strategy session, she received a message from one of her followers that asked her, "How come you stopped posting on your stories? Because, I was always looking forward to watching your stories." And it's because on her stories, she was being a little bit more raw. She was talking a lot about her daily life and kind of like behind the scenes of being a therapist and dealing with emotions and things like that. And she admitted to me that she felt like she wasn't maybe good enough. Who is she to show up and talk about these things? First of all, I asked her, okay, that's really interesting that you say that, given how many people you've helped and given the status that you have reached in a few very short years. But let's play along with it. And I asked her, what would it take for you to believe like you are good enough? Why is this imposter syndrome showing up right now? She sat with that question for a little bit, and I can almost see the connections being made in her mind, because now she understood that there's not really more that she needs to do, but it's just a perspective shift, right? And she admitted to me that she doesn't really think that she needs to do more, but she feels like she has a little bit of imposter syndrome showing up. And that's totally normal. That's going to happen time and time again throughout our lives, throughout our careers. But the whole idea is that we need to recognize it and we need to have the right tools in place to combat it and to be ready to overcome it. And I personally feel like this is why I love these growth strategy sessions so much, because even though she's an extremely competent therapist, she's very self aware, she constantly works on herself. When it comes to our business, sometimes we are just too close to the issue and we cannot see exactly what's preventing us from moving forward. So it takes an outside perspective to recognize that pattern, to point it out to us, and then to help us reframe our mindset and our thoughts and our beliefs in order to move forward. And with her, it was really easy. I already knew that she journaled a lot. So I told her that next time she journals, she needs to explore these ideas further. Write a list of why exactly she finds it cringy, as she mentioned, to show up again. And then, opposite of that, write the reasons and the logical reasons as to why it's not cringy. There's nothing cringe about showing up, about posting consistently. Even if you took a break, there's nothing wrong with posting once again. And I also invited her to explore her identity and figure out why is it that she feels like she's not good enough. And again, just to reframe those thoughts in a logical way, create some affirmations around that. And at first she was really hesitant because she thought I was going to tell her to create content. She thought that I was going to tell her that she needs to show up and she needs to start posting immediately in order to reach a broader audience. But I told her we don't have to do any of that right now. The first thing that she needs to do is take a look at her beliefs and change them and start affirming her new beliefs so that she can finally move her mind from that place of stagnation to one where she can start beginning to grow once again. And thankfully, this client was already primed to receive these messages. And immediately after we talked, a few days later, she sent me a message with things that have already happened in her life. And she sent me a message with the new affirmations and the new beliefs she's instilling in her subconscious mind. And all of this work is gonna set us up for the next session where we're actually going to take a look at what she has created, what she needs to create now, and how to shift her content or how to shift her efforts so that she reaches a wider audience. But first, you need to really do this mindset work in order to be able to move forward. We work on mindset first, getting clear on what's holding you back, and then move into strategic, practical steps to make sure that you're getting the most out of the content that you've already created and the new content that you're going to create. So let's explore this idea further. What if you haven't created anything at all? Or what if you're not creating anything at all? The problem here is that if you don't have a clear strategy, you're going to stagnate and not really move forward. So if we flip the script here, because the opposite of creating too much is just as common as creating too little. So maybe you're not over creating, maybe you're just not creating anything at all. And this happens when you don't have any strategy at all in how to promote yourself and how to promote your services and your business. I work with a lot of clients who have incredible ideas, very powerful messaging, and the strong desire to grow, but they are stuck in a cycle of inaction. They're not producing content, they're not putting themselves out there, and they feel paralyzed because they don't know where to start. And that may be because you're just coming out of a burnout, like the previous example we just talked about, or it may be because you never had to deal with creating content, with strategizing. Maybe you come from the corporate world where a lot of the times we just have to follow what's being said to us and we're just a small piece of the puzzle. So looking at the entire marketing strategy may feel very overwhelming. I don't blame you. It is quite overwhelming, especially when you're starting out. But here's the thing, you do need a strategy in order to be able to grow, because it's not enough to just want to grow. You need to have a plan and set that plan in motion. But the plan also needs to be realistic and achievable for the business stage you are in right now. If you're aiming too high and you're expecting to do too much too fast, you're most likely going to get overwhelmed and shut down. At the same time, if you're not aiming high enough, you won't stretch yourself or reach your potential. This is why we need to focus on building a strategy that makes sense for where you are today and where you want to go. So let's talk about what it looks like to set realistic goals and build that momentum. If you're someone who hasn't been creating any content at all, whether that's social media posts, videos, emails, blog posts, because you're either overwhelmed, in a burnout, or unsure of what to do, we need to start by creating a realistic step-by-step plan that feels manageable and sustainable. So here's how we do that. First, we need to get clear on your core messages. What is it that you want to share with your audience? What's your unique voice? What do you want people to know, feel, or do when they interact with your brand? This will give us a foundation to build your content strategy on. Next, we're going to set realistic, achievable goals. We need to take a look at what's manageable for you right now. For some of my clients, that may mean starting small, maybe one blog post a month or showing up on stories twice a week. For others who are ready to dive in, that may mean setting up a robust content calendar that includes video creation, social media posts, and email marketing. But whatever it is, the key is to make it realistic and aligned with your capacity so that you don't burn out or feel too overwhelmed. Next, we need to build consistency. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is trying to do too much too soon. Whenever I work with my clients, we focus on building a habit of consistency because consistency creates momentum. It's better to show up regularly, even if it's in small ways, than to overwhelm yourself with a huge launch or a content calendar that's impossible to maintain. And this goes back to exactly what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. If you want everything to be absolutely perfect, it's very hard to show up consistently because sometimes things are just not perfect. Going back to my client's story, she was going through a burnout, so she stopped posting, which is completely understandable. But if she had continued to post, at least on days where she was feeling a little bit better, then she may not have had these feelings of feeling cringy or feeling like, who is she to show back up, right? Because she would have at least still maintained some sort of a consistent contact with her audience. Finally, what we need to do is adjust and optimize over time. Once we've got that consistency going, we look at the results and refine the strategy. What's resonating with your audience? What feels good for you to create? From there, we might add more content, switch up the format, experiment, maybe explore new platforms. But we do it from a place of growth, not burnout. There you go. Just 4 easy steps to setting realistic goals and creating momentum. But now let's circle back to mindset because I know that that's where a lot of people get stuck. Whether you're over creating or under creating, the common trend here is lack of trust, either in what you've already created or your ability to take the right next steps. When I work with my clients, part of the process is helping them reframe their relationship with content creation and strategy. For those of you who constantly feel like you need to create more, what I recommend is shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundant one. Instead of feeling that what you've done isn't enough, you start to see the value of what you've already created and how you can repurpose that so that you work smarter, not harder. And for those of you who feel stuck and have no idea where to begin, I recommend we work on building that trust in your ability to take that small, consistent next step forward. It's about releasing the need for everything to be perfect before you start and instead embracing the idea that imperfect action is better than no action at all. And truly, this blend of mindset work and actionable steps is why I absolutely love holding these growth strategy sessions with my clients because I feel like a lot of the times you get either one or the other. Either you get someone that tells you exactly what you need to create and sends you out on your way, or on the other hand, you get someone that only works on your mindset without any actionable steps or practical tips and strategies that you can actually implement in your business. What I want my clients to feel is that they're both empowered and equipped to grow. And that is one thing that I always tell my clients, that ideas are only as good as the action you take on them. So while mindset and strategy are extremely important, implementation is what makes the difference between staying stuck and moving forward. Because I don't want us to talk about just what you could do. I want to help people map out a clear, actionable plan of how you're going to do it. And again, this is why we look at how to prioritize what needs to happen first. So if you're overwhelmed by all possibilities, whether it's repurposing all content, starting a blog, launching a podcast, or creating a new offer, we get clear on what the next logical step is for you. I also like to talk about systems that you need to support your content creation, whether it's setting up templates, automating some of your processes, or batching your content. I work with my clients to create systems that make it easier for them to stay consistent without burning out. One last thing you need to take a look at is how to keep yourself accountable. Always create achievable deadlines and milestones so you're not just creating a goal, but also following through. That's another reason why I really love getting on these strategy calls with my clients because working together keeps them accountable and they know that they really have to follow through. And I personally love to see their growth. I love cheering them on and I love being there for them in case they need that moral support, in case they need that technical support. It kind of takes it from them just working by themselves in their business, which a lot of solo wellness entrepreneurs do, to having a team and having a support system so that you're not alone. I always think it's nice to have someone betting in your corner, and I'm proud to say that I am that person for a lot of my clients. I talked a lot in this video, so whether you're someone who's over creating and you're feeling burnt out, or whether you're someone who's under creating because you don't feel like you have the right strategy, if you feel like my message resonated with you and you want us to hop on a growth strategy session together, let me know. I'd be happy to help you. Remember, you don't need to create more and more in order to grow your business. And you don't need to stay stuck waiting for the perfect plan in order to take action. What you need is a strategy that makes sense for you and the mindset and support to implement that strategy in a way that feels good and sustainable. And if you're ready to break free from the cycle of overwhelm and inaction, I invite you to book a growth strategy session with me. Or if you're not yet ready to book a session, I invite you to read our blog where I share many practical and actionable steps to help you grow your wellness business. Because my goal has always been and will always continue to be to help you grow in your business and achieve the life of your dream. And if you're new here, I'm Vanessa from Zen, a branding and web design studio where we help you tap into your CEO energy and finally live the life of your dreams. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up so that I create more content like this. Please subscribe so that I know you're watching, and I'll see you in the next one.